Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a few moments and invite God to the party. Amen. Questions?
Questions?
Yeah.
All right, the time you've all been waiting for. You want me to read and you answer?
That's not exactly what I had in mind, but
Okay.
thanks for asking.
I'll just keep rolling over here.
Yeah. Here, you roll that one. I'll roll this one. It says, as you complete the steps, is another 4-step warranted? Or is it covered by 10, 11, 12? There's a school in AA that says you do the first 9 steps once and stay sober in 10, 11, and 12. I'm not of that school. If that's what you're doing, it's working for you, I'm cheering loudly. One of my great teachers was in that school. We just approached it from a different angle. On my 8th 4-step, 10 years sober, I discovered resentment's 25 years old that I had not been able to see before then. So it was important for me to continue. I think I've done 28 of these, and I'm in process right now on my 29th one. They don't take long anymore. I did my last one on an airplane in about 15 minutes because I stay pretty well cleaned out. As far as the resentments go, I always listed 2 or 3 that were hardest to let go of. And I recommended that to the guys I sponsored. The last ones that went are the ones that have a tendency to come back. So let's make sure we got those, anything that's current. And I have yet to turn the page after my first one. In other words, I get less than 1 page of those, including the ones that were hardest to let go of. If I stay cleaned out with 10, 11, and 12. Where are you on that?
I'm the same. I'm of the belief that we're not limited to one spiritual awakening as a result of the steps, and I need all the help I can get. So I would say at least an annual review, a pause to see if there's anything, would be my approach, or is my approach.
It says, how can a person deal with having been sexually abused by a family or friend as a child when they first get sober? Is there a way to heal this from the big book of AA? I think it's really important for me to remember that we're not the know-all, be-all. And I don't have any problem at all sending guys I sponsor to therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists, lawyers. Sponsorship is not the be-all, do-all. Let's don't get past what we're capable of. I send somebody like that to a professional. Now I share my experiences with them and the things that work for me. This one calls for professional help. And I've sent guys I sponsored professionals within the last month. And most of these guys are sober a very long time. Go ahead, take that one. You're gonna love it.
Why? That's a management question.
Yeah.
We don't get.
Why?
They might have
Yeah.
missed the first session.
Yeah.
What time length is typical for completing step 4? I think you touched on that. It's not so much a completion time, but how much can we devote each day?
Yeah, it varies, my experience, from maybe 3 weeks. The writing portion on the resentment inventory doesn't take long. The prayers can take a while. They can take, the thing about forgiving, the guy that killed his son took 2 years. So it can take some time, but it doesn't matter. All I gotta be is in process here, and I'm just fine. Just be in process, you'll be fine. But don't give yourself a time limit, because you're back to managing. And maybe you have a long history of doing that really well. I don't. I managed my way into this chair.
Next question. Sex inventory always baffles us. Any tips?
Yeah, I got one. Do what the book says. Yeah. I think it's really important. I think that thing is laid out in such an amazing fashion. Somebody's asked me the one I did not want to be asked, and that's about what I did at 25 years sober that destroyed my life. I told you earlier that I've got an alter ego I call St. Scott of the microphone. When I was sober 10 years, speaking at conferences fell out of the sky on me. I mean, out of nowhere, all of a sudden, I'm all over the country and now all over the world. I think I've spoken in 15 foreign countries, all but 2 of the states. I became a big deal, and that's so dangerous. I was a Saturday night, I've spoken at Founder's Day in Akron twice. And I became very impressed with myself. And in 2004, I started getting involved in internet pornography, and I couldn't tell anybody. Because I got this persona that I don't want to, I can't tell my sponsor, can't tell my road dogs, can't tell anybody. And the first step in the bad direction is not a big deal. It's the second one that's so dangerous. Sandy Beach was not talking about relapse when he said, the measure of my recovery is not whether I get off the path. We all get off the path. The measure of my recovery is how quickly I get back on. Matt described it so beautifully. When he takes a step in a bad direction, the next thing he does is call me. And the second step doesn't happen. The first step in a bad direction is not a big deal. The second one is deadly. And I couldn't tell anybody. It got worse and worse and worse, and I eventually violated my marriage vows and got caught. If you're doing something you know you shouldn't be doing, quit worrying about what you're going to do if you get caught. It's not an if question. It's a when question. Yeah. We tried to hold it together for a couple of years. And I dropped all the men I sponsor. I canceled everything I had speaking. I was scheduled to speak in Copenhagen. I dropped everything. I dropped all the men I sponsor. 3 of them refused to go. And those 3 men saved my life. I still sponsor the 3 of them today. I don't think they were getting any spiritual help from me. They were getting it from other places. But they would not leave me. And I'll never be able to, they saved my life, those 3 guys. I was sponsoring something close to 20 men at that time. When I dropped them, the rest of them fled. Those 3 did not. And anyway, she and I tried to hold it together. We couldn't. We divorced. I was insane. I was suicidal. I would stand out in a field and curse God from the depths of my soul. And if you hate me this much, come down here and fight me like a man or take me out. With all of the profanity you can imagine. And I did that daily for about 6 months. And I was suicidal. Wall Street Dan, who I sponsored at the time, took my guns away. And I was just miserable. And over the course of time, she and I got back together. We did well for a while. She nursed me through this cancer. And in April of last year, it's been April of 21, she rolled over one morning and said, I don't think you can be in the man you need to be in the man I need you to be concurrently. And I think you should move out. And I said, you know what, I think you're right. So it was not the problem I'd created before, but we had grown apart. We're going in very different directions. And I'm not mad. I learned a lot. Y'all have heard some beautiful things I learned from her today. I got some more coming. I hope she feels the same way. I don't know. We don't stay in much contact. So that's what happened. But it was not the first step in a bad direction. It was a problem. It was the second one, without bringing it up. I think if I'd taken that to the team, all the rest of that would not have happened. And through that time, I changed sponsors every 2 weeks or 3 weeks. I was just batty. Just batty. Next question's yours.
Thanks. Finding purpose. Well, that's broad. Yes. My tell you something that happened to me. This was 5 years ago. Maybe I was approaching 10 years, 9 years or so in sobriety, and had really been receiving the gifts of just being a responsible adult. You know, I had gotten married in recovery. Had I think we might have purchased a townhome, and we had things going on. You know, I had a good job that I would actually go to each day, and things were looking good. And then all of a sudden there was some org changes at my job, and I showed up one day for a meeting with my boss expecting a promotion, and ended up being told I didn't have a role anymore. And this was at almost 10 years of sobriety, and I'm like, wait a second here. The pain wasn't so much for me, but it was like, what am I going to tell my wife? Like we have like, I felt kind of ashamed, and I felt like a lot of these emotions that I had never experienced before. I mean, this isn't supposed to happen to people who are sober and who are doing like good things. I'm like sponsoring people. I'm being of service. Like, so I do what I was trained to do and has become habit. I called Scott. And it was about 10 o'clock in the morning, and he said, meet me at 5925 O'Brien, which is a clubhouse in Nashville, for a noon meeting. And I was like, Scott, I don't have a job. I don't need to go to a meeting. You know, I need a job. I don't need to go to a meeting. And he said, let's go to, you know, and we went to a meeting, and he was there, and he ended up getting me a new sponsee. Again, Scott, I need a job. I don't need a sponsee, but therein lies the purpose. My purpose today isn't in my job. It isn't in my relationships, my title, the zip code I live in, or anything like that. I have a purpose, and it's staying sober and helping another alcoholic to achieve sobriety. If I can define my success on any given day by those metrics, I can go to sleep just blessed beyond my capacity to receive, because I can check those boxes. Job, no job, wife, no wife, fill in the blank of all of those other things that like society wants to tell me is like my purpose. Like, you know what? You guys have given me a purpose. It's a primary purpose, and it's one that's working for me today.
I'd add a word to that question. The word's today. What's my purpose today? I think it'll make any question easier to answer. I don't need to figure the rest of it out. Makes me crazy trying to. I take way too big a bite. Yeah, just get it right today. It says, how do we handle it when a family member will not allow us to make amends to them? Parenthesis, mother. I think in a situation like that, what I've seen people do is continue to be a good family member. You send a Mother's Day card. You send Christmas cards. You send small gifts. You send Happy Easter cards. You do what you can, and that's all you can do, and make peace with it. If you get the opportunity to say anything, it needs to open with, I have a great sadness. I do not need to judge them. I don't know how much damage I did. I have a great sadness. The other thing I would say is to pray about it. And the prayer is, God, if there's some way for me to make amends to my mother today, help me not miss it. Get the word today into that. Stop trying to fix the rest of your life. Get it right today. And if there's nothing today, then thy will be done. I think you can get some peace from that. That's a difficult one. Go ahead.
I agree, and just continuing to do what's right in front of you, and trust in the process that would help, that would open up, given the opportunity. 9th step. Does, quote, when to injure them or others, end quote, mean self-me, or is that a cop-out from making direct amends? No, I think when to injure them or others is...
I'm not on the others list, if that's what you're asking. If it meant, if I was on the list of others, it would have said anyone. Yeah, I'm not part of others. And that's, it's back to the how free do you want to be? Is that what you see?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, this is addressed to you. I'm going to answer it, but it's addressed to you.
Thanks. How to handle suicidal sponsees. How did you cope with your thoughts at 6 years sober, as I mentioned? And I'll tell you that I'm of the, if somebody tells me that they're considering that, I'm gonna do everything I can to get them the medical help that they need. I'm not a negotiator or going to try and talk anybody. I will do whatever I can in my power to get them a medical facility, get them help. And I would recommend medical care for anyone thinking of those types of thoughts. There's, like you were saying earlier, like we definitely favor medical help With new guys, like coming out off of alcohol can be lethal, but also, down the road in sobriety especially, my personal experience with that was I kept really close with my sponsor, and I had he had gotten me back into the book, and we were doing like multiple times a day check-ins, like check-in like regularly, and it was like, put your shoes on, wear your feet, what are you doing for somebody else? And at that time, I remember I was staying back with my mom, but she was out of town, and I just had my dog there, and I was like, well, if I do something stupid, dog's not going to eat for a few days. That thought crossed my mind. Not saying that you need to buy a dog in order to avoid these thoughts, but the idea is like whatever it takes, but keeping it open. How did I cope with it? I told somebody about it, and was not too sober to check myself into a hospital if I needed to. I don't have firearms for good reason too, but the things like that I would definitely probably get rid of. Doctor, I would say medical professional for that one.
Yeah, I would say that too. The other thing I would do is I would work very hard on getting into today and staying here. My daughter was a suicide attempt. She fired a pistol into her mouth, for real. Today she's blind in one eye. She has lost some coordination. She's okay. That was many years ago. I've talked to her about it. A few years ago, I talked over the course of a month to 2 different AA members who were getting out of mental hospitals after serious suicide attempts, and I asked them this: were you thinking about yourself all the time? Yes. Were you staying in today? No. So let's get back into today mentally. One of the tricks I use is we can't stand on any windows here, but I asked them to look for the color green. I said, do you have good color vision? Some don't. If you do, if you would go outside in the daytime, if the sun's out, there are 4 different colors of green on any given tree. There's the top of the leaf in the sun, the top of the leaf in the shade, the bottom of the leaf in the sun, bottom of the leaf in the shade. There's 4 greens on the tree. Look at it. Look at the grass. Look at all the different kinds of grass. Look at all the different greens there are. And after we've done that for 30 seconds, I'm going to say, okay, weren't you right here when we did that? Was your mind right here? So trapping your mind in the moment is a critical piece. Get back here and stay here, and get invested in helping somebody else. Let's get the new. Now, you're too new to sponsor, but you're not too new to exchange phone numbers with the new man and invite him to the meeting. You're not too new to help him find a sponsor. You're not too new to stay in touch with him every day for the next 2 weeks. And let's get you out of you, because that's all suicide is just way too much me and not enough of everybody else. And it's me in the future, in a bad future that may not happen. And one of the great questions is, do you have a plan? If they have a plan, we're calling 911 because we're up against it. If they don't, then let's get the other help and talk about these other things. And tell them that's not the long-term plan. The long-term plan is happy, joyous, and free. Suicide is not part of that. And suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And suicide, and I tell them this too, this is a gift from one of the guys I sponsor. Suicide does not end your pain. It redistributes it to those who love you. It does not end it. It passes it on. That is some awfully good information. Here you go. Try that.
How do we deal with the amends that would hurt them or others? Do I read the second part too?
I think that's different handwriting.
Okay, yeah, it is different handwriting. For those that would hurt them or others, my experience has been for for me, sponsor, to pray, and I don't think I have permission to hurt somebody else at my expense. This is a life or death errand for me to make amends. Let there be no doubt about that. If I'm willing to make the amends, but in so doing it would hurt somebody else, the amends would be to not do it, because what I'm trying to make amends for is hurting them. So if I was to go and hurt them again, then it wouldn't be a true amends. It would be selfish. So I would pray for for them.
And I would do one other thing. I get real specific with my sponsor about exactly what this is. Some of us have a tendency to fool ourselves. If you'll type that up, I'll be glad to sign it. I believe my own BS. You may be fooling yourself here. Get real specific with your sponsor. I recommend it very highly. What's the other one?
That's good stuff. When making amends, do we have the right to ask for their forgiveness? Or do we focus on forgiving ourselves because it is not our place to ask them for forgiveness, especially if they could say no? But we can do the utmost to straighten out our past and forgive ourselves to be able to move on. I don't know if it's a matter of right. I guess you have the right to do whatever you want. Personally, I don't include that in my pitch. I only have 4 breaths, and that might be a fifth. My job here is to clean up my side of the street. Ultimately, it's what they say. I'm listening, I'm responding to it, but I'm here to put down the facts of that I hurt them. Whether they forgive me or not is irrelevant. I don't need that to continue on to a new freedom.
Yeah, it's not my responsibility. My responsibility is own my mistakes and ask him, is there some way I can make it right? And if my sponsor and I can agree that I should do that, then I do it. I think if you owe financial amends, I recommend if you owe $1,000, show up with 100 minimum. If you're absolutely sure you can pay them 100 a month, promise 50 and pay 100. Under promise, over deliver. It's a new concept for most of us. We've been over promising and under delivering for a very long time. I find it very helpful on the amends financial. Also on my financial, if he's got multiple, I like to start with the smallest one first, because you can start completing them and you'll start feeling good about yourself. If you owe 100 here, 100 there, 100 there, and 10,000 over here, and you work on the 10,000, you're gonna be a long time feeling better about yourself. Knock out the hundreds first. And it's just what I do, it's just technique, which is really what we're asked about there. But I found that to be very, very effective. Is that it?
I think so.
I think rather than take a break, I've only got a couple of closing stories. Have you got something else? Anything you want to close with?
I just want to say thank you. Awesome. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to sit next to you here, and for everything that you've put at my feet, for paving the way for me and a lot of other people. And this has been fun. Thank you all for hosting and feeding us and making us feel welcome, and for the great questions. And yeah, I have plenty of stories, but I'll just ride on your coattails here.
Well,
take us away.
Yeah, that was a great set of stories, and thank you again, everybody. We appreciate it very much. This is a gift from Miss Linda. She said, we're all members of one family. Our last name is God. I need to remember that. I need to be treating everybody like brothers and sisters, especially the ones I think don't deserve it. And I got a number of stories I sometimes close with talking about when I saw the curvature of the earth, but I think I'm going to tell this one instead. And this is a true story. There was a guy, happened to be a Frenchman, and he was a skydiver. His great passion was free fall, the tumbling and acrobatics you can do in free fall. And he did it hundreds of times, and he was, of course, an instructor. And as they approached the drop zone at about 10 or 12,000 feet one day, he's doing final checks on his novices, and they hit some turbulence, and he was thrown out. and he had violated one of the rules, and it was that one. He's out at 10,000 feet with no chute. And he's faced with a choice. And his choice is to be terrified of the future, to place blame, to have a bunch of fear and negative emotion, or to do the thing he loved the most for the rest of his life. And they watched him as he fell. And he tumbled and he dived and he did the acrobatics you can do in free fall. I would propose that all of us fell out of the plane the moment we were born. Unlike the skydiver, we don't know when it's going to be over. We face the exact same set of choices. To be terrified of the future, to place blame, have a bunch of fear and negative emotion, or to do the things we love the most for the rest of our lives. It was necessary for me to go through the step work, to dig the poison out of my soul, to find out who I really am, to find out what it is that I love the most the rest of my life. And it's hanging out with you. I think people in recovery are the most fascinating people in the world. And this has been a spectacular day for me, and I thank you so much for it. We invited God. I thought he showed up pretty strong today. So I think maybe it might be appropriate for all of us to take just a moment and thank him. And then I'd like for us to slowly, I say again slowly, whisper the Lord's Prayer. I started that in a jail 30 years ago. We opened with a serenity prayer, and it sounded like an invitation to a fight. God, grant me a serenity. They're all suffering from testosterone poisoning in there. And I thought, I can't listen to them do that to the Lord's Prayer, so I asked them to whisper it. And it changed it. And I take that wherever they let me. I change it. If we whisper it slowly, it changes it from a ritual back into a prayer. We're not praying the prayer at the end, we're reciting it. And I think you'll find if you go slowly with me and whisper it, you'll find we're praying it. Let's have a moment and thank him. Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Thank you. Could you feel the love? Yeah. Thank you all so much.